call this meeting to order, Lathrup Village Planning Commission, for our Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. And we'll start with roll call.
Roll call. Chair Potowski,
Here.
Vice Chair Hammond,
Present.
Secretary Stansberry,
Here.
Commissioner Fobbs, Commissioner Hicks,
Here.
Commissioner Cantor,
Here.
Commissioner Tamarelli.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Say we have a motion. You want to put a motion for
I'll make a
Will?
motion to approve the agenda.
I was going to ask for Will's excusing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he
Yes,
is excused,
He is
yes.
officially excused,
You-
sorry.
Okay, he had to reach out to you? So
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to excuse Commissioner Fobbs from today's meeting.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay. Move on to approval of the meeting minutes for March 15th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of March 15th, 2022.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to the public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. This is for items that are not part of the agenda. Okay, not seeing anyone stepping forward for public comment. Do we have anybody online?
I do not see anyone online. No one online.
Okay. Well, we'll close the public comment and move on to the next public comment and the public hearings, of which we have 3 this evening. We'll start with A, public hearing on the electric vehicle charging station ordinance.
Do you want me to give an introduction first, or do you just want to do the art? So, as you are all aware, you've been discussing for quite a few months now, an electric vehicle charging ordinance that would, or ordinance amendment that would allow for and set provisions for electric vehicle charging stations within the commercial district. So, this is the first step to make that officially happen.
Good.
Okay.
Is this really good PowerPoint? There's really good one. So, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Eric Peach with Giffords Webster, the Village Planning Consultant. We did establish a PowerPoint, however, with technical difficulties, I'm not sure that we'll be able to show that. It's basically just what Susie mentioned has been discussed over the last few months. The last time that we discussed it here, it was asked of us to kind of clarify some language within the ordinance, specifically 5.13 for off-site parking, and to just kind of see if when development occurs within the city, how the ordinance would handle the requirement for EV spaces, electric vehicle spaces. And so I'm not sure if it made it into the packet or not for 5.13. Can you verify that you have that?
The only language I see in here is for section 4.20.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the section I
That's
have.
what I thought. So I can read that for the record here. The amendment for 5.13, off-street parking. So the amended language reads, all new, expanded, or reconstructed parking facilities for non-single-family residential development shall provide the electrical capacity necessary for minimum level 2 electric vehicle equipment to be added to the parking facility at the time of development or at a future date. The main electrical switchgear for the development shall be installed with sufficient space and capacity to support 50% of total parking spaces for level 2 electric vehicle charging stations with a dedicated branch circuit and overcurrent protection device per space. So it gets a little technical there, but EV charging stations are encouraged for a minimum of 5% of the spaces provided upon completion of project development. And so that concludes the amendment to that section. So it's not a requirement. The proposal would not be a requirement, but more of an establishment of the equipment for a new parking facility to implement EV if ever the use was to either be required or opt to provide electric vehicle spaces.
So by equipment, you mean capacity?
The capacity,
Capacity.
correct, yeah,
To support the,
Yes, sir.
the provision of the equipment in the future.
correct, for level 2 or higher, so level 2 or level 3 EV charging stations.
So
So
it's not a requirement to install the charging stations themselves, but it would be a requirement to provide the distribution of power to the location where charging stations could be installed at some future point.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the ordinance amendment would encourage it, and then encourage the new facility or like a change of use. For
So
the
it's not a
proposal.
requirement, it's just encouragement.
It's an encouragement,
Okay.
correct, right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if there are any we opened the public hearing portion of this, so with that introduction and explanation, if there are any comments from the public, we'd entertain it at this time. If not, we'll close the public hearing on the electric vehicle charging station ordinance and move on to the capital improvements plan public hearing. Susie's running between workstations here, so. Any public comments on, online at current?
No.
Okay.
So, as you, again, we've been working on these capital improvement plans each year for at least as long as I've been here, and probably then again some. So, you actually had an updated version of your capital improvement plan, and the charts on your desks when you came in. This is something that again the Planning Commission does every single year, and is meant to assist the city administration in budgeting for the upcoming fiscal year, and then also help project out into the future for different capital improvements. And a capital improvement is defined as typically a one-time project that exceeds $5,000 or more. And it can be anything from construction of a new public facility, whether it's City Hall, water sewer, pathways. It could be purchases of major equipment. For example, the DDA purchased flower baskets last year. So it could be any of those things. It covers each department, including administration, DDA, Department of Public Services or Public Works, as well as Parks and Recreation and the police department. So everyone was given an opportunity, or all departments, I should say, were given an opportunity to update their project areas. And so a summary of those projects are on page 13 and 14 of the revised document that was given to you. There's quite a few more projects in the Department of Public Services, specifically around making some much needed updates and upgrades to the existing building. So, do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, so Jill Boehm is on her way to the meeting, so I don't know if you may want to move this to a different location on the agenda. She should be here within 20 minutes or so. She's more inclined to speak on this specific CIP. So if it pleases the commission, that's an option that we can consider.
Can we
Up
do
to the
that?
Commission.
We already
I-
approved the agenda. Can we make a change to the agenda based on a motion?
I think what I would recommend, given that this portion is scheduled for the public hearing, you could take public comment right now, if there is any, based on the limited introduction that we have received. And then once Jill does arrive, if there's any individuals that wish to readdress the council prior to this item's appearance under item 8B, you could allow for an additional public comment period at that time.
I think that's a good
And I
solution.
think that would be appropriate. So,
All right.
I'm not expecting there's going to be public comment at the moment, given I know a lot of information in the packet and there hasn't been a lead-in. So, but we'll give it a minute or maybe a half a minute. Not meaning to cut anybody off, just trying to be efficient with the time that we have, so. Okay. All right, well, we'll postpone the further comment on this and move on to the next item on the agenda, which would be public hearing for special land use for 18411 West 12 Mile Road, Life of God Outreach Sons Global Ministries.
That is correct. The next item on the agenda is 18411 West 12 Mile Road. This is a conversion of an existing vacant building to a church use in the office district. It's approximately 5.1 acres with a building that consists of approximately 6,700 square feet on 2 floors. And there are 44 parking spaces available on the site. And as I mentioned, this was formerly used as an office. And the proposed worship space plans to have approximately 120 person occupancy. And then in addition, as many places of worship do, this includes a school and office as secondary uses as well. So if you have access to the letter that was submitted for this application, there are a few items that need clarification. We believe that the landscaping requirements have been addressed and have been met on the limited space that's provided on the existing site. However, outstanding items such as the waste and rubbish within the ordinance, that it requires compliance for an on-site storage bin. And there was no indication on the site plan that the site would have waste removal. The screen wall, there's an existing screen wall on the property that separates it from the adjacent single-family residential neighborhood to the rear. The existing wall, I believe, is 8 feet high, which exceeds the requirement within the current ordinance. However, there's some specific requirements for walls when constructed that the applicant should provide verification of, specifically in terms of the thickness of the wall. The plans did not include any indication for proposed illumination on the exterior of the building or the site, so the applicant should confirm if any improvements to lighting is proposed. And then probably the largest concern for this use conversion would be the proposed parking. The site is 9 spaces short for a place of worship. It should be discussed and considered if there's any plans for overflow parking. And the applicant may wish to consider reducing the capacity to a lower capacity. 93 would be an ideal occupancy for the amount of parking spaces that are existing on the site. So the special land use process, which this is that the Planning Commission here would make a recommendation to the City Council to take final action. And the PC to take action could either approve with conditions, deny or postpone to allow the applicant the opportunity to revise and provide additional information. And like I said, in summary, the largest concern, I believe, with this proposal is just to confirm that the amount of parking spaces that exist on the property for them to be utilized for the church use would not have negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, and that it would be, the amount of spaces would be sufficient for the type of use that's being proposed.
I think there was a suggestion in your notes as well as the possibility that there were a couple of parking spaces in the right-of-way
Right-of-way.
on Guy Place.
Yeah.
I didn't specifically notice those on the plan, but I just referenced that you made point of that in your, in Giffords Webster's observation on it. Also a suggestion that those could be, I think, turned over for additional landscaping. I thought there was like a landscaping within the parking zone area that was part in question, but I guess we'll entertain commentary from, or an introduction from the presenters for that project. If they have anything to add or address the commission about.
And I'll have their architect, Heidi, is on the phone too. Heidi, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Right, you should be able to unmute yourself. There, okay, so we've got their project architect. All right, so. Heidi, if you'd like to introduce yourself and just answer any questions you have.
I am Engineer Haider from Engineering Service. We submitted drawing for this project to confirm this as existing using now offices building to become church. We assume we're using 120 seats, but probably we can reduce the number to become 100 seats if this make difficult for parking issue. But and even if there are any additional requirement for landscape, I think we add more landscaping if there are any issue for this stuff too.
Hello, everyone.
Yep. Can you please, just give your name and.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And-
My name is Scotty Jones, and this is my wife, Charlotte Jones. And we are the pastors of Life of God Outreach Sons. And in dealing with the parking situation, we have spoken with SOS. We have a partnership with SOS, and for quite some while, for a number of years. And Mr. Ryan Hurst has agreed that we could conceivably use their parking facilities on the times that we gather. And he said that won't be a problem if something needs to be given to you in writing or whatever the case may be, he will be more than glad or happy to do that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So I saw the schematic and it was hard for me to tell the location other than the address that was provided. What's the landmarks on either side of this building? What other businesses are on either side of this?
There's a medical office on, if you're facing the building itself, there's a medical building on the right side, and then adjacent to that is the SOS building, South Oakland Shelters, and they have agreed to use their lot.
Okay, thank you.
So SOS is to the west,
Correct.
and there's another commercial building across Guy Place.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, and all the parking structures behind those three buildings are all connected. There's no walls or anything prohibiting traffic from going from one parking lot from their building to the next building's parking lot.
And just to tag on to that, obviously then it goes within that 500-foot radius for adjacent parking or for parking, shared parking purposes that is outlined in the ordinance.
What's, another question, what's the membership? How many members do you have?
Approximately less than 70. Less than 70.
Give or take?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what would be the requirements from a legal perspective in terms of, you know, I mean, obviously SOS could leave that space at some point and a new occupant could take place. So I guess this question is probably for Scott Baker, in terms of using that space to meet the parking requirement.
So generally, the shared parking agreements are recorded as an easement, and that's normally done through the development process. But again, I just want to remind the commission that this is the public comment portion. It's not the dialogue and the action item request where we'll get into more of these details.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the
No, that's-
public on this element? And
I want to-
again, we've been given a brief introduction to the nature of the proposed change in occupancy.
I do not see.
If there's no comments from anyone in the room,
There's no one online right now that would like, no one's got their hand raised on.
given that we have this structured as a public hearing, and then I guess what we'll do is we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll move on to new business, which takes us back through, our approval process on our previous two items. And then we have the opportunity to go into more detail and get into the question and answers that we kind of sort of slipped into here. But we'll continue that and during that portion of the meeting this evening. So thank you for that
Thank you.
introduction, though. So we'll close the public hearing on special land use for 18411
Thank
West
you.
12 Mile Road,
Thank you.
and move on to new business. Approval of the electric vehicle charging station ordinance. So we've been provided with and read into the record that last portion for the modification. And if there are no questions or if there are no concerns, we'll entertain the motion to approve the electric vehicle charging station ordinance as it's been drafted and previously reviewed by the commission.
Second.
I think we have to make a motion first. So I'll make a motion to recommend to approve the language for the electric vehicle charging station ordinances as defined in today's packet.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none. We have approval of the electric vehicle charging station ordinance, the ordinance amendment. So we'll move on to consideration for approval of the capital improvements plan,
Except we're still waiting on Jill.
but we're still waiting on Jill. So we will postpone that and move on to site plan approval and special land use for 18411 West 12 Mile Road. So that came back quickly.
Okay.
So we can resume our questions and discussions regarding site plan approval and for the special land use for that occupancy.
So I had a couple of things. I heard the developer suggest that, the plan calls for 120 seats. And so that is dictating the number of parking spaces that are required and combine the number of parking spaces required with the number also required to accommodate office use. And they're 9 spaces short, but the developer or the engineer architect suggested that they could reduce the number of seats. And it sounds like, based on what Pastor Scotty just said, the membership's about 70 people. Seems reasonable that they could reduce the number of seats in order to be in compliance with the parking ordinance.
As things currently stand.
The idea of entering into an easement, a documented easement with South Oakland Shelter so that there's access to their parking helps alleviate that problem as well. Personally, so I don't see any issues with it. If we do those 2 things, then I think the parking situation is not a problem.
So are you saying lower the capacity, but then if he lowers the capacity, then he wouldn't
May not need.
need to do the easement with.
Yeah, so I guess
And
you
they
have
could
2
always do that in the
options.
future.
You have 2 options.
But-
One is to reduce the capacity. Below 120 people, you have to do the math to figure out what the appropriate number of people is, or enter into an easement agreement with South Oakland Shelter.
I thought the number was 93.
93, he said.
93.
He said 93. He had already done the math.
Oh, right,
Eric
it's
said
right,
that
it's in
earlier.
there, 93, yes. Okay.
Okay, so,
So he's saying 100, we're saying 93. So
Right.
if he says 93, then we're all done.
Then we're good.
So that's your choice, right?
and the facility has to, as it's, substantiate that limitation to the occupancy. In other
Yes,
words-
that would be, yes, through the building official would then confirm that as they're going through any.
Right. And we also have the issue of the handling of the sanitation,
Yeah,
No, second.
which would have to be documented as it was suggested by Giffords Webster in an interior space if it is not something that's provided on the exterior of the facility. So is there a plan or a strategy for meeting that criteria?
Well, absolutely. If a dumpster is needed, we could certainly provide that. And that was something that we had anticipated on doing anyway, getting a dumpster. It's needed.
Okay.
Okay, because that's something else that will then, impact the parking, and the need for its placement, meeting the criteria of the ordinance, and as well as being able to be suitably accessed by the service, so that it, so that'll have an impact on your parking number as well. So that would be something that would need to be provided in the plan itself for,
as a
as a
condition of
condition.
the approval.
yes,
Okay.
as a condition of the approval.
Right, it sounds to me like, just based on if you're going to require the dumpster, I think it probably would serve you well to have the agreement with South Oakland Shelter. I can get you an example of a shared parking agreement. I think that would cover all your bases, at least.
Okay. I thought there was also a suggestion, and I'll point this one to Eric, regarding they could have an internal space as part of the building, part of the building where they could store it as an alternative.
Oh, yes.
But that would be a requirement that you build out that space and that it be protected. It has the sprinklers, it has the isolation from the rest of the building by construction that is, I believe, 1 hour fire rated with
Yep.
the
Yeah, that is
criteria in the
correct.
code. So that's an option, but it would have to, it would certainly, it uses your interior space for that effect.
And I think it also should be noted that if a dumpster is the preferred use, that may obstruct or take the space of certain amount of existing parking spaces.
Yep.
Yep,
So for that to
as I
just be
was
kept in
suggesting.
mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
So compliance with the parking and combined with the strategy for handling the sanitation would be items that need to be resolved satisfactorily.
I have a question. The engineer is listed on their list of things, the brick wall, about the width of the brick wall, if I remember correctly. I guess the question is that brick wall's been there long before they were there. How are they going to get that information? Where would that come from? Would the city already have it about the brick wall, since it's been there for almost at least 30 years that I know of? That 8-foot wall that we were talking about
Yeah.
has been there long before you guys were there.
Yeah, this, in the memo, it's section 3.b,
Yeah.
which is on page 46 of our packet. And the note just says the applicant should provide additional information pertaining to the existing barrier wall. So
Which I'm saying is,
How do you get that
how's the
information?
applicant going to get that information? It's been, huh?
Just measuring.
Just the top of the wall?
So to make
Not-
sure it's
but-
compliance.
Yeah,
Just the
but it
thickness.
says that it has supports in between. And when you read
reinforced
it-
with steel,
So the only way you're going to know that is
balusters,
cut into the wall.
proper drainage to flow.
Only reason I know that, because I know the people who live behind that wall.
Yeah.
Nobody wants you to cut into that wall. So, I mean, if you get on top of the tape measure, I could say, yeah, it's 8 inches or 12 inches wide, but that's not going to tell you if it has rebar in it. It's not going to tell you what it's made of. That's my concern. How are you going to answer that question unless you cut into the wall?
Not cutting
And
it
that-
well. We really just want to mention.
Well,
You
there's
just
a,
wanted to mention.
there's equipment for locating steel, but I don't know, we're talking about the compliance. We know the wall's taller
Yeah.
than, now when we say thickness,
You just want to know the width.
Yes.
or not the length, or its compliance with regard to, it extends so far along the adjoining residential property and may or may not be stepping down to the lower height that's permitted once it gets to the, or proximity to the front property line of the adjacent properties, if I characterize that correctly. So,
Right.
so I guess we're just trying to get at, how do we qualify getting past what's been recommended there as far as validation? What are we trying to validate in terms of it being correct? Or-
I guess
or-
that's
or-
really the question.
It's obviously grandfathered in because it exists.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there
I
a
think
concern?
that's probably where the analysis should stop at that point. The fact that it's a lawfully non-conforming wall, any of the criteria or standards that are in the current ordinance wouldn't be applicable to that wall regardless. So I think as long as it's in good condition and repair, and good state of repair,
So measure.
I don't think we need to go too much further into that analysis.
Right, okay. Yep, I just didn't see where the point of transgression went beyond necessarily where it's an existing wall, it's taller than the ordinance provides, what the zoning provides, I should say. And, yeah, we can leave it at that.
So on page 47, this is item 6B. This talks about wheel stops. Some mechanism being installed in the parking spaces in order to prevent cars from inadvertently driving into either the wall if they're parked on the back of the property line or into the building if they're parked on the side of the building. Do we need to be concerned with that at all? It's not
I
in
would
the
say
site plan.
yes. I mean, specifically call it out because someone else might. But I mean, those are a requirement of any site going through the approval process. And this is our opportunity to ensure that those are placed. And I would recommend that they pin any wheel stops that are placed.
Pin parking blocks,
I think
Yes.
the ordinance requires that they're pinned
so that they're not,
all over the place.
plowed all over the place.
Yes,
Um,
concrete. Right.
Oh, and I skipped a note on item 6A, which talks about the driveways, access to the parking around the building. There are 3 driveways, and there's a note. Existing site has 2 access driveways on 12 Mile Road and 1 on Guy Place. The applicant may consider removing one of the driveways to reduce number of potential conflict points between vehicles and pedestrians. I don't think there's anything in the ordinance that prohibits you from having 3 driveways, so you could just leave it as is. But just a note that might.
Well, consideration for the commission would be whether we anticipate with this change of use that there's going to be a significant traffic flow, and whether that traffic flow onto Guy Street is a consideration or a concern for us or for the community. So,
Well, I guess the question would be, does the church intend to have traffic flow off of 12 Mile or off of Guy? Or is it, because if that's the big question, because if it's off of Guy, then yeah, it's gonna impact.
well, I mean, the options are there, just that point. So, traffic, if the drive is there, the drive will be used. So it's just a matter of anticipating whether there is a potential, if you want to say nuisance to the community, which I'm not suggesting that there is. Some may consider it such if there were like heavy traffic flow that was coming in and out. You know, it's not I mean, the imagery that came to mind was more like if you had a funeral home, you'd have a situation with traffic like that possibly more frequently than necessarily, you know, a church service where people attend and then people maybe in mass leave or exodus at one time. So if there's no concerns on the commission's part.
A question on special use approval. Is it, since we're moving from an office district and applying a special use, does the time of use, you know, services in the evening, throughout the week, the weekend, is that a concern or a question that we should know about before we move forward? You know, when do you plan to have services? Are there any other organizations at this point that you're aware of that you're going to share the space with? You know, how often will you have services?
Service time is, you know, your regular worship service on Sunday mornings, 10, 11 o'clock Sunday mornings. And then your midweek service, your Bible study, which is 6 o'clock p.m. And then, of course, if there's some type of special activity, outreach, we generally do like, you know, backpacks, you know, during the a back-to-school rally, that kind of thing. So we can alternate. We generally do it either here or we can do it over there. So pretty much your basic Sunday morning worship and then your midweek service, Bible study for the most part.
So, yeah, nothing, I wasn't anticipating anything that would necessarily go on what we would consider normal business hours in the community, so.
7 to 11 p.m.
7 to 11 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You know, a special service, like, I mean, there may be times that we may have an evening service on a Sunday evening, 4 o'clock service from 4 to 6:37 or something like that. You know, we won't be there till 2 in the morning.
I'm not perceiving that there's,
Oh, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that would be the intent. If there were, then there would be, I mean, that would be handled in a different manner. So, maybe for the commission.
So item,
Oh, I was just going to say, I did speak to one person that abuts the property on the last site. You're a neighbor, right, aren't
Yep.
you?
Right.
Have you talked to anyone? There was no concern from the one neighbor of the 3 that directly
About that.
abut the property. I didn't have a chance to talk to the other 2, but they
Yeah,
were fine
okay.
with it, so.
I guess the only concern as someone in that area is parking on Guy. If there's any overflow parking on Guy. Because the streets are not wide enough for cars to be parked and traffic to go back and forth, even though you're not supposed to turn down Guy coming down 12 miles that everyone's going to
people do, yeah.
But
Can I make another suggestion? There is the building just right next to us. They're not using that on Sunday, and I've been trying to make contact with the owner.
in this building,
Yes.
yeah.
And he's been out of the country, so, but I've made a couple attempts to try and connect with him. but I don't really foresee that being a problem. But when I get with them and talk to them, I'm gonna ask them if we could, you know, utilize the space on, because they're not using it on Sundays. So I think that would be a.
Well, right, and this would be supplemental to
The
potential
SOS.
use of the SOS
Correct.
property as well.
Yes,
So
that is
that,
correct.
that, just getting that agreement in place and on record, I would want, yeah, I think the commission would want a commitment that overflow parking on the street wasn't going to happen and create
Oh, yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
So, at least, that's, I'm speaking
agree.
for the
No,
commission,
I
but I
agree.
think,
Yep.
yeah, I think we'd be in agreement with that. So.
So item 6C, page 47 of the packet, talks about exterior lighting. So the site plan doesn't address exterior lighting at all?
Or as presented currently.
As it's currently presented. That's right.
There is a light fixture on the northwest corner of the building. I don't know if that was noticed. I can't tell whether it was functional or not, but there is a fixture on the northwest side,
Okay.
so.
And there's two in the back there too. There's two in the front, and actually there's two in the back. I think there's two in the back.
The main point being that making sure that they're in compliance with the light shall
Lighting.
remain on the site, reflected light shall remain on the site. It's a hard one to measure, but just making sure that it's not, any lights from the facility don't extend beyond the property line is the basic gist of the requirement. So if lighting was going to be upgraded, as part of a future, desire for your current owner, for your ownership of it, that you work with the city to make sure that adherence to that is maintained. So, 8-foot wall helps actually, but
Right.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that's, I think the biggest thing is you just don't want lighting bleeding over at night into the
Exactly.
residential yards and
Exactly.
disturbing those neighbors. That's the biggest thing.
Exactly, or, illuminating their yards.
Yeah, but if they're not complaining about it, then.
No.
As I said,
They may not
8-foot
be-
wall.
There's no
They may
light
not be
now.
turned on.
It may not be turned on.
Yeah, there's no real light now.
Okay.
The only other thing was item 6E, which is about drop-off. So, organizations like this sometimes will have donations or food drives or things like that. So just making sure that if you are proposing to use the building for drop-offs, that, there's appropriate traffic flow if you're going to have trucks that are bringing things in. Right, things like that. And again, I don't think that is required of you to do anything on the site plan necessarily to update that, but if that is an intended use, then it's something that the planning commission would be curious about as
Yeah,
well.
essentially, if it's going to be used in a manner that suggests the traffic is going to be heavy or of a nature that is not particularly suited to the site as it exists, that accommodations would need to be made. But from what's been presented thus far,
Yes.
and Giffords-Webster's analysis, didn't sound like that was a concern based on how the facility is being planned to be used, so.
That's all the items I had.
Okay. I didn't, all the items that were listed here seem like mostly, to some degree, informational and items that can be resolved. And we've discussed some of the resolutions on those options, especially the parking. The question at hand is formulating
The motion.
the motion for this, if the discussion has been sufficient, and if there are no more comments or items that need to be discussed, we'll entertain a motion to, with the conditions associated with it.
Yes, I was keeping a list. I think we've got the dumpster, the shared parking agreement, parking stops.
Parking stops.
And I think if we have the shared parking agreement, there's no need for the capacity, because the capacity will be fine.
I think a written commitment on the, no parking off-street or
Yeah.
off-site.
And I'd like to add my normal one that I add to every single approval that we do. I have no worries that Pastor Scotty will take care of this, but that there's regular weekly garbage cleanup on the site.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We've had instances.
Oh, yeah.
I put that in on every single one of them.
Other
Yeah.
situations,
I'm not worried about you, Pastor Scotty.
properties adjacent to walls, sometimes things get tossed over walls.
Oh, okay.
Surrounding, surrounding properties sometimes have to deal with problems that sometimes exist. So, and that's part of making you just aware of that, so that we don't want to see problems like that. So, and as much as it's in your ability to control it.
Absolutely.
So,
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the site plan review and special land use for 18411 West 14th.
Excuse me.
12 Mile Road.
Excuse me. Just do the site plan approval first with the conditions, and
Okay.
then the special land use recommendation
Recommendation
as a
goes to-
separate motion.
Okay, so the conditions,
The site plan approval.
site plan
first.
and conditions first.
first,
Yes.
right.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the site plan for 18411 West 12 Mile Road with the following conditions: that a dumpster is added, shared parking agreement with one or more of the neighboring properties is added, the appropriate parking stops are added to parking that is adjacent to the buildings and sidewalks.
And the
There's-
wall.
What's that?
And the wall.
On the wall. No off-site, a written agreement that no off-site parking takes place on Guy, and that garbage is picked up on a weekly basis on the property.
And that they obtain special land use approval from council.
And
Yes,
they,
conditional on, yes,
right,
special land use.
that they obtain special land use from, the land use approval from council.
Second.
It's a mouthful.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none? Have that motion pass?
And
Site
I'll make a
plan
motion for recommending approval by city council for special land use at 18411 West 12 Mile Road.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? Motion passes.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Welcome to the community.
Thank you.
Well, he's already in the community.
Yeah.
Welcome to your new place.
On a new level.
Property
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
On a new level.
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
New business.
Thank you.
You all need prayer?
We know where to come.
Yes. Sure. Okay. So we'll return back to, let's see here.
Hey,
The public hearing, the public hearing for, not the public hearing, the approval of the capital improvements plan, but then we'll entertain the public hearing
Yep.
after we get the introduction, so,
Is this on the agenda?
yes.
Eight
We're
B.
just, it's,
We're just moving it around.
yeah, we've improvised a bit for technical difficulties.
Yeah.
So,
I,
are you connected, Jill?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience with me while I was attending another meeting. I'm just going to join the Zoom so that I can do the little presentation that we had.
Okay.
Um,
I think that'll be helpful, and it may
Yeah,
lead
so
into some public comments.
we
so we'll see.
apologize that, just to preface our CIP conversation, by saying that we inadvertently got mixed up in our, oh, that's a very extreme close-up. We had a mix-up with the version of the file that we sent, and we sent one that hadn't been updated. Unfortunately, there's been some updates, and then we had some additional information, even as late as today. So the document really is incomplete. and
It's still a draft.
it is.
Okay.
All right, so I don't want to join that. Continue without audio. No audio, I know.
All right, just remind me.
All right. All right, I'm delighted that we've gotten through half of the meeting. So. Okay. So, what I thought would be helpful for our newer members and for the newer members, my name is Jill Boehm. I'm a partner with Giffords Webster, and been working with the City of Lathrup Village since 2011, I think. Over the last several years, we've been working with the city to help the city prepare a capital improvement plan. And the capital improvement plan is actually required by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act as a function of the Planning Commission. It's an interesting role for the Planning Commission, and I know when we first started doing this, there was some confusion, like why are we talking about the police station police department's requirements or the road issues? But really, it is helpful for the Planning Commission to be the body to hear public comments and input and gather everything together in one place. The capital improvement plan is a 6-year schedule of the physical improvements in the community. And it identifies needs for the improvements and, importantly, the source of the funding. This helps the city prepare its annual budget, so the operating budget. So the first year of our 6-year CIP becomes the city's operating budget. We every year seem like we're pushing up against that budgeting process by City Council, but I think we're pretty close to being on track, aren't we? With helping.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're making strides to do that. Every year I think we get a little bit better. I would say, except for things like this that happen. The CIP helps plan for constructing, maintaining, upgrading, and replacing the city's physical inventory. And because the projects are spread across multiple community needs, so we're looking at police, water, sewer, parks and recreation, administration, the Planning Commission is the entity that takes it all in. There's a policy that's established in the CIP, and that's any acquisition of land for a public purpose, which costs $5,000 or more. Any construction of a new public facility that's over $5,000. Non-recurring rehabilitation of building, grounds, facility, or equipment of $5,000 or more. The purchase of major equipment that's $5,000 or more individually or in total. So sometimes if we need 3 of something and together that's over $5,000, then we put that in. And then planning, feasibility, engineering, or design studies related to a future capital improvement project. Also, if it's more than $5,000, we would put that into the CIP too. So the role of the Planning Commission is to ensure that the public works projects are consistent with land uses identified in the master plan. And then by taking the CIP and sending that on to City Council, the Planning Commission is generally saying, yes, we think that the projects outlined in here reasonably address the city's capital improvement needs. Oops, that was all I had. So that's the general overview of the CIP process. So in the document that you got at your desk today, it looks familiar. It looks like the ones that you've seen in the past. It looks like the one that you got via email on Friday that was the wrong one. But each section identifies the needs of the departments that gave us the information. So we've got a section from the DDA. We have a section from roads. We have water and sewer needs. So they're all in there. The descriptions generally are correct for the needs that were identified. We had some issues with the summary table originally, and then the final spreadsheet. So everything now is in alignment the way that it should be. We did get some last minute information today with respect to roads, and I think they're generally consistent with what's included, but there were some different numbers that were presented. So that's the overview. I think it's probably, I mean, we can talk about general questions that you might have had. If there's a confusion over numbers, it's better to use the new version that we gave you. And so with that, I'll just...
Yeah, some of the questions I had were answered by
I'm so
the right
sorry.
version of the document.
I'm so sorry.
There were some things that were confusing, like why are road projects under
Yes,
Parks and Rec?
that would be,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're taking on, everybody's taking on new responsibilities, right?
So
Yeah, right?
there were,
All
yeah.
pitching in.
Sorry.
They're learning about it real soon.
Yeah, right.
And I have a couple of questions, but and you guys may not, people in this room might not have answers to that.
Right,
Might
so
need to
let us
come
know
from-
what those might be, and we
Okay.
can bring that back to you next
So
time.
on page 26 in the projects for the police, there's a reference to a trailer needed for speed enforcement. The city, the police department is invested in 3 mobile signs, like sign-mounted speed
Oh, yeah.
items. Like, do we need the trailer if we've already got these?
What page, Jason?
Huh?
What page?
26 in the packet,
Oh, and then not the new one, though.
not in the new one.
Oh.
No,
just the
page
question is over the
26 in the
trailer.
packet, which,
Is this page here? The last page of the upfront.
the project
Before
inventory.
it gets into the breakdown.
So this is on page 14
Page
of
14,
your
okay.
CIP
Yeah.
printout, P2207 speed trailer.
Got it, we'll ask.
Okay. And I was going to ask about the DPS and the assessment of all the conditions at the facility there, and who does the assessment?
Oh,
Those were initially put together by Rami Sweden when he was working on building facilities. He had gone through, and I know he had obtained quotes on some of the larger items. I think some of those smaller numbers may have been discussions with DPW staff who, you know, they've been able to see those conditions for a while. So, but I know he did get he handed me a whole stack of backup for that. So he was out there doing some research and getting some quotes for those.
No, I'm not personally aware. I mean, I don't frequent the the facilities, but it just looked pretty extensive and made it seem like things were pretty run down there. So
It could use some
It
TLC.
needs some help.
It could definitely use some TLC.
And I've been there to like pick up like dirt, right? That is provide, you just pull up your car and get dirt during the spring for your gardens and whatnot. There's a statement in the CIP in the section about the DPS requirements that talks about how like there's materials from projects that are just kind of left all over the yard wherever they can find space. Part of that is because the space isn't organized very well. It's just kind of been,
Yes.
it hasn't really been updated.
Yeah,
So yeah, it needs some stuff.
inside and out, really.
Inside and out. There are references on, it says on page 13 in the section of the projects for DPS, line items DPS 2209 and 10,
Yes.
parking lot replacement phase 2 and 3. What's
Yeah.
going on with parking lot replacement phase 1?
Phase one already actually
Yeah.
happened last
It's
year.
done?
Yep, it's
Okay.
done. What's going on is that we were using some bond funding to take advantage of those economies of scale for paving, and then the city is reimbursing for that. So, and those are requirements. I think it's of our MS4 permit with the state.
Okay, great, that's good to know. There was also a reference to, DPS 22-4, concrete slab. So this is about the interior of the DPS building currently is dirt,
Yeah.
right? And so the DPS wants to spend some of the budget to upgrade that to a concrete slab.
Yes.
That seems like something that would be a good thing for them to
seems like
have.
something that's well overdue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
long overdue.
Without a clear picture of exactly how that space has been used, if it's like, I imagine like more of a shed.
It's, like I said, it needs some TLC over there.
Okay.
There's certainly areas that are in better condition than others, but yes, this
Yeah,
is.
okay.
Does the concrete enable something that currently can't be enabled, or what? How is it that it was dirt and now we want to, I mean, concrete is nicer, no doubt,
Sure.
but is there a function that provides that we don't have now?
I don't have an answer for you on that, Bo. I'll certainly look into it and make sure that I get an answer for you. I think it's more so just it's just deteriorated to that point, you know? But I'll get a real answer for you.
So no TLC.
Yeah.
I feel like it's beyond TLC, but I'll get a solid answer for you on that.
Okay. Yeah, we certainly don't want our facilities, returning to the earth.
The last question I had was about DPS 22-11, which is a city hall roof repair, which is estimated at $20,000. Is that estimate, like, how firm is that? Is it? Seems low to me.
That is just for the flat section over,
Over the community.
over
room.
the community room.
Yeah.
There's some leaks that we've been dealing with over the years, and it's time.
Is that Ramey's assessment as well on that?
Yes, that's Rami's assessment. I don't recall off the top of my head if he
sometimes,
had.
like leaks or what appear to be leaks can be other things if there's pipes and other circumstances, so I just wanted to be,
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head if he had quotes for the roof or not. I mean, they're definitely leaks.
I was
mean,
gonna say,
it's not.
failure to address, those, I mean, if the flat roof, it can go far and not be seen, and there could be more work involved there, so that might be actually a very good point, is to, you can patch a surface, but if there's water in the system, it's not, it's just gonna be further hidden deterioration, until it's addressed in its entirety.
Jill, in the packet that was provided on Friday, the inventory versus the individual line items, there were a lot of inconsistencies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is that what has been, obviously I just got this, I haven't had a chance to check it. Those have been double checked and now match up
Yes.
inventory to individual line items. Okay.
We do have a couple of additional items that we received today that we wanted just to double check,
Okay,
that we've gotten the correct, because there was some discrepancies between some of the things that we had earlier and things that were corrected today. We want to make sure they're right. So we'll send
Okay.
you out one more fresh
all right.
version.
Final.
Yeah, one more final version.
Jill, this is another question. I know part of
Yeah.
this is like costs and what's going on with the economy and material supply chains and ability to get stuff. For programs that had already been designated, that are like multi-year, that had been done prior to the onset of our current economic conditions, are those numbers still good? Are they, relative to the work they were intended to cover?
I think some of the fees were adjusted a little bit, and that was some of the things that came in today, and I think that's why maybe there's a little bit of a discrepancy. So that's one of the things that I want to talk about too.
Okay. Yeah, I just figured there's probably some challenges on things that if they were started maybe even a year or two ago, just to see that we've got the numbers accommodating, or at least the scope that was intended for what was going to be covered. It's just understood.
One item, W22-06, water meter replacement, something near and dear to my heart. I see has been reduced. I assume, can you talk to the,
That was my question too. I mean,
Okay.
because originally we had $860,000 in the capital improvement program for that.
And that was another one that came in today that we weren't able to verify.
Okay.
So there was a question of whether it was split between last year and this year, or this year and next year, and where the costs really belonged.
Right. And we're
So
hoping we
that
don't
is
have to
one of the ones that I wanted to double check.
Yeah, we're hoping we don't have to spend all that money, but
Yeah.
but that's what the current plan is.
Yeah.
And then,
well, and then how
split.
is that addressed? I mean, if we say the water meter replacement, the the things we've
Right.
talked about separately, I guess I'd present it here. I mean, how does that other money get reallocated then? Is it this body? Is it the infrastructure group?
it would be council.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and that was one thing that I was going to note as well, is the capital improvement plan is really, our best estimate about projecting out, and really to the point too about, if we take into account inflation or other things, we try, and that's why we do this every year. So even though it's a 6-year plan, each year we're getting back into it and updating it. And sometimes projects change and they get moved around and something couldn't happen one year, so it gets bumped, but maybe something else gets moved forward. So it's not binding. It's really just there so that we identify what projects are, we get a sense of how they're gonna be funded. And that was one of the other things too, that, another issue that we need to address are over, areas that we are intending to receive grant funding for. And so making sure that in our summary, we show like the funding sources or general fund, or the funding sources are grants, and knowing if there's any matches to that, because that helps us, again, plan ahead. If we didn't remember we had to set a match for it, then we're like, oh, we can't, can we really do this? And there were a couple things that we had identified as grants, but then the fees, the costs associated with that, I think we just need to make sure that we're all on the same page. So probably another little workshop.
Yeah. And on your first point too, council, like for example, last year, council, when we did budgeting, we whittled away a lot of the things that we had planned on that were in that year's recommendation from the planning commission, and we just couldn't afford to do it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I did have a couple comments on page 25 of the new packet, just in my quick review. On the first section, 2201, where it's the $664,000, that's the cure in place piping. That's noted below for SR 2202. So I think that needs to be moved up on the previous section. And then kind of a question here, this is probably more for Susie, but for S2203, which is the storm sewer closed circuit TV, first off, I think that's a state grant, not a federal grant. Unless it's something new. Because the $200,000 that we're using this year for CCTV is from the state. That was
I
what.
think technically it's federal, but I'll double.
State administration of federal funds, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like
I don't
state,
know.
I
Just-
think it's like, yes, I think it's federal funds that the state gave to us, but I'll double check.
Okay,
on
and then I was confused on the, so was that grant, was that a matching grant?
Mhm.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the plan is to do another year of, in 2022/23, to do another year of televising?
No, not another year of it. No,
Because we're spending the money now in this fiscal year, right?
yes.
And this is,
So
They
that-
just
yeah,
listed-
2022 starts in July.
So that we just need to adjust the dates then.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
So, 2021, 2022.
All right, so
Are
we
there
will-
any items on here that, I mean, based on that, then at least that item should be noted for 2021 fiscal year, right? Because the money's being spent during the current fiscal year for the CCTV project, which is the 2021-2022 fiscal year, right?
That's what we
So
just,
you're
yeah.
gonna wanna go back through and check the dates on everything, because
Yeah.
2021's not listed on anything. And some of these things are obviously currently being done in 2021.
Right, the things that are being done that will be finished in 2021, 22 fiscal year
Need to be
will
noted
come out,
that
yeah.
way, yeah.
So, yeah, it wouldn't be surprising to see. It's just whether there's anything that's spanning before 2022. It's part of the durations. The fiscal year starts.
And what's the, on 23, what's the 88,000, the local major road fund for 2022?
R22-02?
Yeah.
Which page?
23 of the new packet, second chunk down.
Second item.
Is it the one, it's not the alley, but wasn't there another, what was the adjacent?
I think that might be our, is that, no, that's not the match. Which one was
Yeah, because I don't think there should be anything come, at least that I know of, that's coming out of the local road fund, because it's all out of the millage right now.
We'll have to check, we'll check the date on that one, because I know that we are, for the planned work on Southfield Road. We have talked about utilizing tri-party
Party funds.
funds for the approaches that are abutting Southfield Road between 11 and 12. So perhaps that's what that one's from, but I'll,
Okay.
yeah, powwow indeed.
So that's, is it, when we say approaches, that's approaches associated with adjacent road work? I mean, not
Streets.
non-Southfield Road, but the adjacent streets?
Yeah.
Yeah, to tie it, yep, to tie them in.
There's some bad ones.
There are some bad ones.
Some bad
We
ones.
fixed a couple last year in Vila and Wiltshire, or one of those two.
Santa Rosa, I think.
Santa Rosa.
And this will also, you know, take it back to that, back to the sidewalks too. They probably, that would probably, if that's what I think it is, then it will also encompass those ADA ramps along Southfield.
The 11-mile repaving, since we're right here, the R2203.
Yes.
Says repave 11 mile from Southfield to city limits.
Yes,
It's Southfield Road, or is it Southfield?
Well, 11 mile.
No, it's 11 mile from Southfield Road east to the city limits.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just got a grant for 2024, something like that. 20,
Yeah, it's 2024 work.
yeah.
I thought that one was being done last year.
No, they did didn't they do the curbs in preparation
Yes, we did do some work.
last year? Yeah, I think that's the work that they did there.
All right. Jill, did you go through the additional items, or were you I mean,
I've got, with the notes that you have, I've been writing them down, but clearly there's things that we still need to resolve, so I wouldn't spend a lot of time working on the draft that we gave you today.
okay,
So
all right,
Yeah.
let us send you a new, fresh one.
Okay.
After we clarify, because there are a couple of things, like I said, that we need to double check,
okay.
so.
So-
Maybe if you could
Thank you.
put a date or a code for the version number,
We'll do that.
so we don't mix them up.
Yep.
Right. So as far as where we stand with the capital improvements plan,
What action do we need to take?
continue the, yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't,
no action.
we were gonna slip back to the public hearing on it,
Mm-hmm.
because we kind of cut it short. We didn't have any
Okay.
comments, but we didn't have
Right.
an introduction and overview. So if we're ready to do that, we will not take action on the capital improvements plan. Is there a particular urgency, or is this just going to be scheduled for review next month?
Yes, we'll be writing it to you for next month.
Okay.
We'll do a new public notice and all that for next month.
Well,
Correct,
did we
yeah.
have public? That, I mean, I know there's people here,
Yeah, this
but
was
are they
noted
here
for
for?
public.
I mean,
Public hearing, yeah.
It is, but I mean,
Right.
but are there?
There have been
We
no
could-
comments so far, but
We could, you could make a motion to continue the public hearing at the May
Whatever it is, 17th, 16th,
17th,
it's something.
Thank you.
17th.
May 17th.
Yes.
Yeah, if you continue it, you can have it. We don't need to renotice it.
Okay.
Can you make a motion to continue
Mhm.
the public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. Maybe we should check to see if there's any comments this evening, since people have been
Yeah.
in the audience, here or online. And I guess what we'll do is open it and then continue. Scott, if you have a comment on the correct way to handle that?
What you did is earlier you postponed it until, or moved it down on the agenda until the new business section. So if there are, I would reopen it up. If there are public comments, you can receive them tonight. And then, as Jill has stated, you could table the action item and then postpone to a specific date, or continue to a specific date, the public hearing, should there be any additional public comments based on the revisions that the commission
Okay.
receives.
All right, so let's open the public hearing on it to see if we get any comments this evening. And then we'll close it or postpone it or extend it. And we'll,
So reopening you're reopening.
yeah,
the,
we're
public
reopening the public hearing.
For 2022 capital improvement.
Consideration for the public who attended or who may want to comment on it this evening since it was part of the agenda. But recognizing that there's going to be some additional changes in review back to us, we will be revisiting it next month. So there's that opportunity as well, because what we'll do is extend the public hearing to the next month.
There's no one online. It's
Okay,
indicated.
it's being
in it,
official.
just in-
So we'll extend the public hearing onto next month, and I guess
You're closing the public hearing.
we're going to close it this evening, and we will open it with the plan to reopen it next month.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to postpone the agenda item to approve the 2022 capital improvement plan until our May 17th, 2022 meeting.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion is passed. So, that covers, I think, everything for the capital improvements plan, that moving target. So we'll move on to,
Right along. Okay, the next, oh, I'm sorry, I'll let you.
just trying to catch my place here, if we're up to request for qualifications.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
On 2777 Southfield Road.
thank you. So, the property that we're going to be talking about this evening is 2777 Southfield Road. You can see, I've got the map here, the zoning map, parcel is zoned village commercial. You can see from the aerial. This was a former bank with a drive-through. I'm sure everyone is familiar with this site. We have an existing 1 acre site. The proposal is to demolish the building and rebuild with a 1-story building with a drive-through for a restaurant. I will give an overview of the process, and then the applicants are here and they would like to share the rest of the conversation with you. So this is an interesting opportunity for the city of Lathrup Village. As I said, the parcel is zoned village commercial, and the village commercial district is intended to be a pedestrian-oriented area. It's intended to prioritize walkability. Standards for development in this district are intended to direct, compact, urban-type development. With that, drive-through facilities are not permitted in this district. As we've been working and talking with the applicant, the proposed placement of their new building does not comply with the standards of the Village Center District either, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So they, in discussing this opportunity, have requested to be considered as a planned unit development. That may allow some flexibility in the application of those zoning standards in exchange for greater community benefits than we might otherwise see with a traditional development that would go through this process. So for the benefit of our new planning commissioners, what is a planned unit development? Planned unit development affords developers the opportunity to have more design flexibility, while at the same time giving the community a little bit more discretion in giving approvals, as well as maybe securing additional benefits for the community. One of the things that we always talk about when we talk about planned unit development is they are not intended to be used as a way to avoid compliance with the zoning ordinance. And we've talked about that with the applicants, and they understand all of that. But instead, the PUD gives the city and the developer some flexibility with ordinance standards in exchange for a project that benefits the city and could not otherwise be built. This is a lot of stuff here, but this generally shows you the process. We start on the left side of the screen. Where we are currently at is the conceptual review and the preliminary determination of qualification by the Planning Commission. Yes.
Widen it out so I can see it.
Oh, sure. Let's see if I can do that.
Since, yeah, I think many of us here are not.
Ooh, there we go.
Maybe
How's
not
that?
that big.
Is that better?
No, that's fine, that's perfect.
So there's a lot of words, a lot of boxes, a lot of steps, and a lot of colors. So we tried to color code it too. The gray boxes are things that the applicant does. The blue is generally staff and consultants. The green is your job, your Planning Commission review and action. So there's several steps in this process. Generally, And some of the planning commissioners who've served on this planning commission for a while will remember that we've had conceptual reviews in the past where someone has an idea and they come to the planning commission, they say, hey, what do you think of this? And you give them some feedback, and then they go back and then they do up their work to update their plans, and then they come back with an official submittal. With the PUD, this is more formalized into the process where we say, no, you have to come to the planning commission and you have to see whether you qualify. Now, they may or may not qualify as you determine that this evening at this point, but they can still move forward in the process. So this doesn't slow them down if you say, you know what, we got some issues with this, or you know, you say we've got some issues, but we think this can move forward. So this doesn't make or break right now, but this does give the applicant the opportunity to say, wow, I really didn't see any of that coming, and maybe we want to rethink. So once they get through this evening, then they will submit their official, their final determination of qualification, and then you'll hold a public hearing. So that's an opportunity again where people are noticed surrounding this property. People can come and ask questions and express their feelings about it. Once we get through the Planning Commission public hearing, Planning Commission then, as with the special land use and some of the other kinds of approvals, Planning Commission makes a recommendation to City Council. Once it goes to the City Council, once it goes to City Council, and City Council is in general agreement with that, they will then direct the City Attorney to prepare a development contract. So that's another one of the really interesting tools that the city has with this kind of development agreement, or this review process, is to have basically a contract with the developer where the city says, we're letting you have some flexibility with these certain standards, because in exchange we know you're going to do these things that you said you were going to do, and we're going to make sure you're going to do them because you're going to sign a contract, and we're all going to agree that this is what we're doing. And so while that process is going on, then the applicant may, well, the city attorney is preparing the development contract, then that would be reviewed and approved by City Council, and then the applicant can submit final site plans. So at that point, the final site plan should be very consistent with what the Planning Commission has seen, and really your role then would be just to make sure that it meets all of the standards and conditions that were included in the development agreement. So at that point, it's pretty straightforward, and then you do have the final approval on that, and then they move on to get their building permits. So that's the process. Do you have any questions about the process? I mean, it's a lot, but
Yeah, multiple steps.
we'll keep going.
A few.
We can always come back to
Yeah.
them. So there are, I think, 6 qualifying criteria for the planned unit development. And just maybe to back up a little bit, this is an option that was included in the zoning ordinance 2 years ago, I think. So this is our first project going through the PUD process here in Lathrup Village.
Jill, I have a question
Yes.
related to the PUD.
Yes.
And I'm trying to associate it with previous consideration for the proposed developer and the proposed tenant, but for a different site. And was the PUD associated with consideration at that other site?
I can't remember which one you're talking about.
Next door.
2 doors down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 doors down, yeah.
Did we?
The current location
Yes,
of the
yes,
proposed tenant.
yes.
Yeah. That's what I wanted, that's what I was just.
This started with that, yes.
Yes, okay.
And so it actually had been on the list of things that we had maybe intended to do over time, is to create this PUD ordinance or standards for it and a process for it, because it is a useful tool for situations like this or others where we might have a challenging site that we want to see developed, and this gives us the ability to be a little bit more flexible with that. So in our ordinance, we allow the PUD option only in the MX mixed use and the VC Village Center districts. So we've said these are the areas that we think really, otherwise it's pretty straightforward. It's residential or the commercial vehicular areas. Again, we think this is so important, we put it into an ordinance. The use of this option shall not be for the sole purpose of avoiding applicable zoning requirements. So we noted the concept presented by the applicant would be out of compliance with the Village Center District standards with respect to the drive-through, building setbacks, and we believe parking as well. The PUD shall not be utilized in situations where the same land use objectives can be accomplished by the application of conventional zoning provisions or standards. This is something that you'll need to discuss with the applicant. Restaurants, we would note, are permitted in the VC district, but that I think is worth a conversation to establish further this criteria. The planned unit development option may be effectuated only when the proposed land use will not material add service and facility loads beyond those contemplated in the future land use plan. I don't really think that one applies in this case, so that one I think is fine. I didn't go into all the details. This is in your review letter that we submitted to you last Friday. That the PUD shall provide a public improvement which could not otherwise be required that would further the public health, safety, or welfare, protect existing or future uses from the impact of a proposed use, or alleviate an existing or potential problem relating to public facilities, as well as one or more of the following additional options. Some of these don't apply. Things related to open space, natural features, historic structures, but some of the other ones might. When we think about establishing compatible land use patterns, protect existing patterns, or thinking about planned patterns. Looking at transitional buffer uses, we might want to talk about that. Promoting goals of the master plan, providing infrastructure, improve aesthetic appearance. And it's not just that we're going to build something new, but that this would be above and beyond what normally would be required by the ordinance. In the Village Center District, we do have standards for building appearance, building materials, and so this would be, you know, how are we taking this to the next level? PUD shall not be allowed solely as a means of increasing density or as a substitute for a variance request, because we would suggest then that this would go through the normal zoning process, requesting a zoning change or a variance. So when we think about the master plan and the goals of the master plan, the comprehensive plan that the city adopted in 2020, we had 5 goals relating to community character, housing, commercial development, public services, and facilities and transportation. And all of that is geared essentially at protecting our residential character of our residential neighborhoods, as well as strengthening opportunities for economic development in the Southfield Road corridor. Transportation is really important, and it's been a critical element of any kind of redevelopment because of Southfield Road and the long time it's taken for the Road Commission for Oakland County to be able to move ahead to the next stage of planning for an actual reconstruction of that roadway. Thinking about that, but also thinking about what makes Lathrup Village special and unique. You know, we see the map that's back on the wall behind you with such an interesting pattern of the roadway that I think as we go to the next slide here, back in 2009, and this was before we started working with the city created this future land use map that really took a look at that and said this area really feels like the center of the community, and created the Village Center area as a way of filling in the whole of the donut, if you will, with what I think was best described as maybe, it was, I think earlier described as like the downtown area, but I think more of the center, the commercial center, the heart of the community, focusing on the civic properties and the Annie Lathrup School at the time when it was originally conceived, the last remaining historic structure on Southfield Road, and keeping the rest of the city, the neighborhoods really largely as is, and having all of that new growth and development in this downtown area. It was envisioned to be redeveloped with a mix of public and private property, residential, office, retail, restaurant, entertainment, gathering spaces, recreation. We have a graphic. Sorry, it's kind of wonky, but I wanted to get that perspective the same way so that you could begin to see some of that concept, especially for our newer planning commissioners, with the school in the image on the left, anchored and flanked by new development. The vision was really for higher, taller buildings with more dense development, a mix of uses again, additional residential opportunities provided, and then moving as we go towards the right on the screen, closer to the neighborhood, scaling down with still some additional kinds of housing, but maybe something a little bit smaller in scale as we transition into the neighborhoods. And then we note in the right, the property that we're talking about with the little pin is pretty much the one in the foreground of this image at left. With respect to the zoning standards, these have been in place since, I think 2011 or 12. Directs buildings to be at the lot line with a 0 front setback, as you can see from the illustration, from the graphic as well, right up by the roadway. And the point of that, too, for our newer planning commissioners, you know, the idea, the feeling that we're trying to create here is a sense of walkability. And one of the ways that we do that is by creating building walls that kind of frame in the space that's created by the street. And that's, we're doing that with building height and then that consistency of building wall as you walk. It gives people something interesting to look at, but it kind of creates that sense of a room type feeling as you walk down Southfield Road. And so that's the intent of the zoning standards that are associated with this, with 90% of the building being up at the front lot line. Again, building element, design, and material standards, first floor uses anticipated retail and restaurants with maybe residential up on the upper floors. Oops, so that was what we had there. So at that point, I think, you know, we can go back, you've got the list of the criteria. I think turning it over to the applicants and letting them share their concept and the reasons why they think that this project is worth your consideration in terms of the larger picture of redevelopment in the city of Lathrup Village. So unless you have any other questions for me, but I'll still be here, so you can ask them to me later too. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a quick question, and maybe sometimes the obvious escapes me, and maybe this is not the time to ask that, but what kind of drive-through restaurant are we considering?
Well, they'll tell you, I think. You'll tell them, won't you?
Yes.
Yeah, they will. They'll tell you.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Good.
Do you want us to scoot over so they can have the seats?
Like, or who's, Sam, who's gonna be your main speaker? I did see Dan on here too.
No stand-up podiums here. Yeah.
Do you have this packet, the presentation?
They have,
It would be nice if I could put it up here.
this was in the packet, so they have it.
Can I just come
All right.
sit over here,
Yeah, do that.
maybe? Or I don't want to take anybody's seat.
You can come and sit at the
Can I
public
sit right here
comment
between you two?
table if you want.
Thank you, Eric. Sure. Appreciate it.
Oh.
All right. So everybody has the packet? Okay. Hopefully the front page kind of reveals who it is, so. That's mother bread.
Got out ahead of you.
The surprise is ruined. My name is Todd Bundred. I'm an architect, and I work with Panera Bread, as we know now. On the screen, we have Dan Cook. He's the director of store design for Panera. And then we also have Patrick Bennett, who's a civil engineer. Then we have the team over here of landlords that will be talking to you in a second. But I was going to go ahead and just maybe walk you through kind of what we're proposing and why we're proposing it and kind of what this is. But first, I want to say thank you all for allowing this tonight and being part of this and giving up your evening. And I want to thank Susie and Jill and Eric. It's been great to work with everybody for the last month or so. It's funny how the village helps push you a little bit further and you end up with a better design at the end of it. So we really appreciate the team effort. So anyway, if you want to go ahead and go to page 2, we can talk a little bit about the site plan, if you guys want.
Okay.
Do you have it there?
Don't mind my scooter.
Everybody has the,
Okay, thank you.
Let's see how they have it paged.
it looks kind of like this, if I can see it.
Yep.
Okay,
Right.
cool. So everybody's probably familiar with, Southfield and Sunset Boulevard, this corner. I think Jill just did a great job of kind of setting it up of what's there now, the bank. And we've worked with, obviously, the planning department, and then what you're kind of seeing here is the most current prototype concept that Panera is offering right now. So over the last couple years, we call it the Great Pause that we've all been part of. Really worked closely with Panera to try to develop this new concept that they're providing, where we hold on to the essence of what Panera offers, that community-based place, the cafe concept where people come together to eat and commune, and then also utilizing a lot of the technology that people are becoming more accustomed to, the ability to order on your phone and go pick it up if that's something that you want to do, or potentially if you're kind of in a hurry to, to pick it up on a drive-through. We'll talk about it in a second, but actually drive-through is not a big part of their customer base. It's like 15%, but it's something that people have become accustomed to. So it's an amenity that they're offering. Oh, I forgot to say, we're very excited. The Panera that you guys currently have is really one of the first ones that was in Michigan. So we're excited to be able to kind of stay within the community and now offer you a better experience. So to the site plan, with all that being said, yada yada. That
Does not say Panera.
Yeah. Was that what it was? St. Louis, St. Louis bread,
How
right?
early it
That's
was.
amazing.
It's a
Yeah, St. Louis bread
company.
Yeah.
We still have these
Yeah.
in our
I'm from St.
restaurant.
Louis, so that's dear
That's
to my
fantastic.
heart. So, and so is the company. But anyway, we're excited about this. So, as far as why the site is what it is, we're utilizing the same curb cuts. It's kind of the traffic flow made sense. If you're looking at what we're trying to do as far as provide not only enough parking for everybody that wants to come to the site, but also provide that safe drive. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It worked for the bank. It's a great, it's just a great concept that you don't have to have people walk through drive-throughs in order to get to the cafe. It allows for easy access for those who are going to come and park, and then those who are going to drive through. We also, in working with the city, we've planned, if you look at the northeast corner up there, a little amenity area, if you will, landscaped connection to that Sunset and Southfield intersection. There's going to be some bike racks. There's going to be some benches. So kind of encouraging folks that are walking from that direction to have a little bit of an amenity space that they can park their bike, walk across. And then also, there's an enhanced patio area with landscaping. If you notice that on the north side of the property. So, they really want to have this, what we've been working with Panera for a long time is trying to develop this multiple options for seating. So we have this inside and outside. And so when the weather is nice, it's amazing to sit out on that north side and enjoy that patio. Oh yeah. Does this, you
Yeah,
guys
that
can see
one's
the little-
shared up there.
Oh, perfect, great, yeah. Yeah, so what we talked about was the ability to, come in and out safely from Southfield and then also from Sunset. Flow around the site would be if you enter here, obviously you can come in and park. There's in and out left and right, same up here in the south. And then the queuing for the drive-through and the rapid pickup, which is a new concept we came up with during the pause, where if you order on your phone and you come up to the cafe and somebody's just sitting there waiting, trying to figure out the bread bowl, you can kind of sneak around them. It's like a fast pass for Disney World. So that's a neat amenity that folks are really enjoying. And then you pull up and the food will be ready for you if that's something. But it kind of puts that drive-through in the back, kind of tucks it away. Trash service, the dumpster is up in the northwest corner, and then, not to belabor, we'll get over to the pretty renderings, but I'd also call to your attention, this is a pretty big landscape package for what we would typically do. We're providing new landscaping, a buffer along Southfield. I'd also direct your attention, we're going to have pedestrian lighting along that, so we're really trying to enhance that, that front yard of ours, if you will. Also, we're providing landscaping in front of the building by the main entry, all along in the patio area, and then also on that west side to kind of create that buffer between us and then the neighbors that we're going to have, the residential neighbors that we're going to have to the west side. I don't know, Dan or anybody, did I miss anything? I think, I don't know if you guys have any questions on the site plan, or we can just keep moving on through and then maybe have questions at the end, if that's all right. Dan, did you want to jump in?
No, you covered the site plan great. We'll get into some of the patio amenities and everything else as we go through the renderings here.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's move on to the next. So this is, wait for it, fingers crossed. You can see it on your, if you're following along in your packet.
Yeah.
There we go, so there you go. So there's only one of these built in the country. It's in Baldwin, Missouri. I'd encourage you, if you guys are curious, to go online and Google it. I've been there. It's a really neat building. It's the newest concept, behind Panera. The ideas behind this is we've created this tower element that really has this, celebrates the entry. You really know where that entry is. It has a presence. From a material perspective, we've really upped in this particular building in working with Susie and Jill on the amount of brick that's on this building. There's a lot more on this one than I think most communities are going to get. Also, you notice there's a lot of glazing, a lot of glass, this idea of like allowing a lot of views in and out to connect to the patio and connect to the front. And then over to the side here, on the north side, you can really begin to see that patio experience. So there's festoon lighting if it gets a little dark, and you'll see that in a different view in a second. But it provides a spot for people to sit outside as well. Oh, nice. Oh no. That's all right. There we go. So here's the, the artistic rendering of the evening. You can imagine, driving down and seeing this glowing beacon off to the right. So, it's just we find it to be a very attractive building. Modern and yet still has a lot of very warm materials that you've become accustomed to with Panera. Over here, you can see the drive-through amenity. Like I said, that's a small part of their business model, but it definitely is an amenity that people are expecting now for a fast casual. So we've tried to integrate that into the design. It doesn't have a huge presence, but you can definitely identify where that's at. And then you can also see the secondary entry where that individual's walking out of there. And then the glazing, and then it also just gives a good idea of the brick and the materiality of this building. It's a very durable building. And once again, just want to kind of show you what it looks like at dusk and at night. Here's a little close-up on the entry. You can also see the patio over there. That's going to be like a stamped concrete that we're providing, which is going to have a more aesthetic, pleasing feel to it. The festoon lighting, I don't know if you guys have probably been to a patio at a Panera before, but they have nice seating areas and umbrellas. Okay, there's the night shot. All right, so here's a quick view inside of the modern Panera. So once again, they really wanted to we're holding on to that place to come in and sit and commune. So there's a lot of different options for seating, community tables, booths, round tables. So depending on how many folks are coming in and what your need are, we can accommodate that to seat. And then also there's a very modern looking place where you can order. I don't even notice there's a mirror over where the bagels are, so you can see all of them. You don't have to look over. There's rapid pickup in the back left, so if you're showing up to grab something quick to take back to the office, you can do it on your phone. So all the different types of ways people want to get their Panera is available to you at this cafe, which is, like I said, this is one of the first ones you'll see. This is kind of looking in that corner. If you can imagine, you're looking to the north, because you see the festoon lighting, and then off, I think, to the east. But there's just a lot of glazing, a lot of glass, a lot of natural light, self-serve coffee, other things like that. The community table, this would be us sitting at the community table right there. I think it can seat up to 12 people. So a lot of different, here's another technology feature that's being brought into this particular development is this idea of the touchscreen. So if you want to, divert away from the line, you can walk in. I'm sure all of us have done it at different places, but it's a pretty easy touchscreen experience. So you do that, you grab your coffee cup, you go get your coffee, you sit down, and then they'll bring the food out to you. So it's a good way of diverting away from the line, or if you want to go walk up and talk to somebody in person, that option's there as well. So, yeah, I think that, and then the rapid pickup right there off to the left when you first walk in. So that is, that's what we're proposing. That's what we're excited to propose. We think it's going to be a great upgrade from where we are now and allows us to stay in the community. And it's a great site for it. It seems to make a lot of sense. So, I don't know, Dan, Mr. Cook, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, so I echo everything that Todd said. You know, we're certainly happy to be in the community. We've had some great success in the community, and we want to continue that success with this new next gen building and really bring the amenities that this building and this site really have to offer for it.
I don't know if you'd like to maybe turn it over to you for a second. Things you want to say?
You guys have any questions or anything? Any comments?
Yeah,
Questions? Let's start
more a
them
couple
now.
of statements versus
Sure.
questions. For instance, on that schematic that you showed there, when I think about where we're going versus where we are, it seems like where the marker says 4, not where it's pointing to, but where the marker says number 4, seems like an ideal place for a charging station, I'm just saying. It just does, it jumps right out at
I
you.
felt that coming. I felt it coming.
Texting about that earlier.
Yeah, you know,
I mean, we did just pass ordinance language.
Which will be
So-
adopted by the time.
I was gonna say, we didn't know.
Yeah.
How could you possibly?
The second statement that I have to confess that when I was asking, I didn't know that you were here on behalf of Panera. When I was asking what kind of restaurant, I was a little afraid you may say another kind of restaurant that doesn't align with Lathrup Village, in my opinion. So when you said Panera, which is widely used here, I was a little relieved. So I just more statements than questions.
Thank you.
I think in particular that it does suit the site well. I mean, just from the standpoint that there already is a drive-through, although it's been a much I mean, obviously the building's been vacant, but the general orientation for the services of that facility aren't that much different than for this layout. So from that standpoint, I don't think there's any objection, at least on my part, on that, so. I like the concept of having the outdoor cafe, and I've used the outdoor cafes at Panera's before. Stop and say, you know, it's site orientation and traffic and whatnot, that it ends up on the north side, but then again, it's also somewhat of a buffer for at least a portion of Southfield Road that way, and with the wider right-of-way on Sunset Boulevard, it's, you know, it's not an I can imagine that it's a more pleasant place than necessarily on the front facing Southfield Road.
Right.
I'm a little curious about how the plan, as it's currently laid out, how the Southfield Road plans will impact it. Just to know whether there's a significant loss of green space in front, and I'll be honest, I didn't pull through up any old documentation on the Southfield Road layout to see exactly what's happening in the right-of-way there and how it impacts this. But I'd be curious to know if it is detrimental, or you'd end up losing any of the amenities, the landscaping, et cetera, that are kind of proposed here, so.
I can take that. My understanding, we went through each of our properties. We've got a bunch on the south.
You're gonna want to speak to a microphone so that people remote.
So that we can get a good recording of
Over
it.
here.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, Eric. Musical chairs is my fun.
Hi, guys. Steve Blum, Vice President of Operations for the Cernow Company, the developer. So simply, we looked at any of the plans for Southfield Road and compared them to each of our properties. And we're lucky. In our cases, the easements only go as far as now I couldn't put an exact dotted line, but approximately before the sidewalk on Southfield Road. Those easements don't go into the existing property.
Okay. So how much of that green area out in front of the landscape, in front of the sidewalk, is potentially lost?
Right, so that green area is where that's the county easement.
Yeah.
Again, not the exact dotted line of where it might fit,
Right.
maybe between the sidewalk, the next landscaping strip to the east, and the grass. Couldn't tell you that, but the grass, broadly speaking, is the county easement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just wanted to understand a little better how it might impact the site, and obviously awareness of it in the final plan. Aesthetically, having the green frontage is nice, and I mean, beyond the row of landscaping that's adjacent to the sidewalk. I just think it'll add to the appearance and attractiveness of it, that's all.
I agree. Thank you.
Some of the thoughts I had are about, the concept looks great, but, you know, the building has been there for a long time. And I don't know personally what significance it might have to residents that have been here for a long time. So I would be curious to get some insight from the Lathrup Village Historical Society about, because
The bank building?
the bank building, I'm talking about the bank, the existing building, the one that's proposed to be raised.
Okay.
I'd be curious for the Historical Society members' input about, you know, what they know about the history of the building, and, you know, is there any concern?
Oh, was it?
You know, and I would say it's not, I mean, it's certainly not designated anything historical. That said, I can say from the architecture, I suspect that it was influenced by the what I'll call the neo-colonial
The town hall?
aesthetic. No, not the town hall, just the bank itself, because the bank is in the same similar style. But I don't know if there'd be a perceived, you know, opinion on that, and I don't know if it's a factor of you know, great concern. But
I
you
would
know,
just
that'd
be
be
curious
more of
for
like
their
public
input.
opinion.
Yeah, may not be anything.
Right.
But I, just based on other conversations I've had with residents about other buildings in the city,
Yeah.
sometimes that comes up as a thing
And,
that people are concerned about.
and I've commented, I think,
Maintaining our heritage.
before in this seat with the concept of going back to what our master plan initially envisioned, which is something more urban with the property or the buildings to the sidewalk line. There's a certain appeal coming up Sunset because the crossroads in the plan act as focal points. So it's great to just to be aware of that. Now, I've often walked down Sunset and imagined, you know, in that future state, the larger building with a pinnacle tower or something that just serves as a focal point that's nice to look down on, or look down that avenue towards. That said, I'm not suggesting in making that statement that that's something that necessarily would have to go out of its way for a development like this. I'm just making that statement of future vision towards the master plan. Aside from that, I think there's the I want to call it a lofty dream or a goal. The goals of achieving something more like a small town community and that sort of structure are important to the community. But so is living in the present, and I think, from my perspective, and recognizing businesses and business potential that are of value to the community as it stands now and in the near or immediate future. So.
So I had a couple other statements and questions. So in the application, in the section on public improvement, which that's in our packet, that's page 83. There's a reference here to on item 3 in the bullet points. It says to provide alternative uses for parcels which can provide transition buffers to residential areas. That's one of the benefits of a PUD. The response is, in consultation with the city and affected parties, Panera has investigated multiple options for this site and has determined that the plan being presented is the most efficient from an operations, life safety, and community improvement perspective. Who are the affected parties that have been consulted, other than the city?
Great question. So we consulted obviously with the city. You said besides them. Obviously Panera also with the landowners and the folks that understand the community better than us, and then we're working with you as well. So it was whoever we have access to right now that we see as the leadership of this community. We've tried to work closely to get as close as we possibly can to what you guys want. So
okay.
That would be my understanding, unless there was someone else I'm turning to look because we work together as
Yeah,
a
of
team,
course, yeah.
obviously.
No,
You
it's
know,
a team.
no secrets. We work very, very hard on
Yeah.
these.
So obviously, residents and customers are also going to be impacted, even if it's just,
Absolutely.
you know, getting a better experience is still an impact, right? So, and you guys have existing customer base at the current location. Might be interesting to get people's opinions about what do they feel about the idea for the new Panera, right?
That's a great comment. I will say, you know, having a large breadth of cafes all over. I think there are 3,000 now. I think you guys were number 62, believe it or not, but there's over 3,000 now. Yeah, there was a lot of data pulled that went into, a lot of analytics that went into looking at this new design.
Yep.
Can I say that someone was in there with a clipboard at your Panera asking folks? No.
Yeah.
No,
No, I'm just suggesting that
it's a
might be
great
a good
thing.
idea. The other thing is there are a few properties on El Dorado Place, which is the street just behind the property. Very few, there's only I think 3 maybe that are like directly adjacent. But they're going to be, at least be impacted by the construction,
Yeah.
right? So those are other affected parties that I'm thinking about that could be consulted as part of this concept of public improvement and the effect that the PUD has on the community. You know, because with any project, there's always going to be benefits
Yep.
and some negatives.
No,
Right?
I agree.
And people who live in the city, people who do business in the city, customers need to be aware of both the good stuff and the bad stuff. You know, the more transparent we are about what the bad stuff might be, the easier it'll be for people to stomach it,
I agree.
right? And understand why, in the short term, they're dealing with this pain in order to get the benefit at the end of it.
Yeah, and based on historical comments, I think they'll be happy with the additional landscaping back there too.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I'm interpreting that the plan as it's proposed, that there's property adjacent to, I know that's part of the right-of-way and back, that is currently green strip, and I believe it's not a portion of the property line itself. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a, and I know there was in the past, before the parking lot, not part of this property, but 2 lots down, had like a retaining wall, and that there was a berm up there, which I think further kind of protects the community from traffic or heavier traffic that might, you know, that certainly could be created by the drive-through.
Right.
And so I think the importance in maintaining that buffer and the landscape there would be important. And as I said, right now I know this is confined to the property. When the previous property was developed and then later the parking lot was added, it took a lot of that buffer. And I know that was an agreement with the city, that the city had done, because the city has looked for parking and opportunities for that in the past. And at the same time, I think there's a certain sensitivity to currently that the El Dorado, as it runs along there, and maintaining, you know, not like somebody's just stepped into their front yard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree, and I that really did kind of help us get to finally the idea that this is the most sensible way of laying out the site, were the things you were just talking about.
The curb cut off of Sunset is the existing curb cut?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I kind of liked about the design, given that it's in the village center, which is designed to be walkable. You've got all the cars pretty much focused in the one corner, so it's a pretty safe flow for pedestrians, you know, in the front of the building. Also like the double buffer around the sidewalk, which is nice, and I think I read you were going to plan on putting lighting up on there as well, which will look nice.
I think that'll be great.
Yeah. I guess this is a question for Joe. I know this is a preliminary site plan, but would there be a 3-foot screen wall along Sunset, like we do at other properties? There would be, wouldn't there? Yeah. Yeah. So that would be a little separation too, which would be nice.
Is this intended to be a bigger space than the current location in terms of like the capacity?
It is a bigger cafe.
Okay, so there'd be potentially more customers, so.
I think our capacity on the inside is, I want to say 60 folks, and then I think if I'm not speaking out of turn here, I think that we can accommodate up to 20 on the patio.
The patio, right.
Yeah, so that gets you up to 80.
So
I'd have to dig back in, I apologize. I don't know the capacity of the existing
The
one off
biggest
the
reason
top of
I'm
my
asking
head.
that question is because
Yeah.
the potential to generate additional jobs, even if it's only a couple of additional people, right?
It's-
I mean, it's.
there's
So,
seven.
so I can take that on a little bit. So the addition of the drive-through here definitely creates some additional jobs from an employee standpoint, to be able to work the drive-through, and also the addition of the amenities like the rapid pickup lane and the rapid pickup spaces out front to give the additional options for our guests. We found that some of our sales have gone away from dine-in, especially through the great pause, as Todd has said, and they go more toward off-premise eating, which we're accommodating more of that off-premise channel through the drive-through, through rapid pickup, through the rapid pickup lane, and the dedicated rapid pickup parking spaces. So we do have 60 seats in here, and with the current sales volume of the existing cafe, which we certainly take into account, and then the plan on the future growth of this, we're really comfortable at that 60-seat interior count to accommodate the folks that do want to come dine in with us, in addition to the additional off-premise channels that we are able to now accommodate with this model.
And potentially adding a few employees to support those additional customers.
Absolutely.
I know one of the primary reasons why we established the PUD ordinance, at least from my perspective, and other people may agree with this as well, is because Panera wanted to have a drive-through, right? That was a thing that we heard from the Suriname group when they were petitioning to us, like, let's come up with some alternative method to make this a possibility.
Right.
But you were saying that 15% of the Panera's business comes from drive-through, so it's not that significant. But it does sound like a significant amount of the business does come from things like rapid order pickup. And like that, so how people are getting food from Panera and placing their orders is kind of shifting. So I think it's a kind of, from my perspective, it's kind of an unforeseen benefit of the idea of a PUD ordinance, is creating this opportunity for flexibility of potentially unforeseen business opportunity that you guys are now identifying.
It's one of those things that I think we may actually hold on to, that has come out of the last few years, is, there's some alternate ways of getting the food, like you said, of serving the customer. So, yeah, I think this gives it an opportunity for that to happen here.
Yep.
Otherwise, it may not be an option, so.
Right.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I perceive that back to the outdoor cafe, I perceive that the landscape area adjacent to it is like maybe a gauge of, can the cafe expand or the seating expand in that area as well? And it just seems like a logical thing to consider.
Are you thinking like a future phase, that if it does show success, or just maybe
Yeah,
potential?
the success of demand, yeah. I
Yeah.
particularly say that because while it appears on the plan, when you look at the renderings, the landscape area isn't emphasized as much beyond the cafe seating. So, in terms of, it just seemed like a logical step or possibility.
No, it would be, for future growth, it's just teed up to do it, yeah.
Yeah. Just focusing on the PUD, the aspect of the PUD, which is the public benefit. Two things came to mind, and these are very minor, but I think they would be nice. One, you talked about the bike rack. I'd hate to see a regular bike rack. One of the things that we did memorializing Sam's father here on the community grounds is we have, some very decorative bike racks, and I think it would be really cool if that could match what we did here, as opposed to kind of an ugly standard bike rack. And then the second thing, when I was reading through the packet, one thing that really piqued my interest was, you talked about for the northeast corner, the option of a public art space. I think that would be fantastic, because we have no public art on Southfield Road, and something, a nice piece of art there could serve as a catalyst for other businesses to do the same. You see this in other cities where they put a nice mural on the side of the building. Next thing you know, there's all the way down the street. So picky points, but just feedback, just nonetheless.
We can work, obviously, with the community, and Jill and Susie and and Eric, and see how that pans out. But I can't speak. I have to talk to other people. It's not it's not my my checkbook. But no, I think it aligns with the mission of Panera, for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't see that as counter.
Free the art, man.
Yeah.
Let's go.
How long do you, as an estimate, do you think the demolition of the current building and then the construction of the new building, what's that whole process look like? How long is that?
Dan, I don't know if you want to help me out with this, but 5 months comes tops, 4 or 5 months, I think, that we can get this thing done. But I don't know, Dan, if that's way off base, based on what we're doing now.
Yeah, so construction for us, including demo and this, is probably around 150 days once we start swinging hammers.
Yep.
And have all permits in. So it's a pretty quick process once we get moving and get all the approvals.
Yeah.
I've got a question related to the new concept, which seems to emphasize on openness in the space and the interior, as opposed to maybe some of the more cozy, nichey corners that existed in the previous version, which I particularly found very enticing about the original, I mean, the original designs. So obviously the concept's kind of moving away for that. I mean, I guess I perceive it a little bit as a negative, that it feels more fast foody in its environment and in its arrangement. But aside from that, I know, times change too. And,
Well, I will say this, I can't say you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? It's a different perspective, and the idea now is, everyone's got an open kitchen plan in their house, right? So everybody has the
Yeah.
kitchen blends right into the living room, which, it's all getting open. But they are trying with the unique seating opportunities, so you have different heights of seats. So that community table's a tall top, and so they're trying to play with scale, height, and then types of seating options to kind of hold on to a little bit of that.
Things that are flexible to adapt
Yeah.
and adjust, as opposed to built-in,
Exactly.
like millwork type
Exactly.
items.
And they're
Right.
constantly looking at, what the millwork is, what the customer likes, what they don't like. But yeah, I can't sit here and tell you that it's gonna be the same as it was,
Yeah,
with
no,
the- yeah.
I mean, to me, it's very clear that the concept is moving to a different time and a different, a different place, so.
Right.
And,
And we understand, people have, deep connections to, I call it St. Louis Bread Company, but, Panera. I mean,
yeah.
we've spent a lot of time
Well,
in
we
this,
were
I have.
excited when it came to the neighborhood. It's been in the neighborhood
Yeah.
just a little bit, a few years, I think, less than we've been, my family has been, so.
Very cool.
97.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just add something on that, you
Yeah.
guys?
I
just because the term hasn't come up, I want to introduce the concept of a third space or third place, right, where the community gathers. This is today one of the great third places, maybe the best one in town. And when I see a plan like this, I've walked into this Panera, which I love, and I see people I know. You're going to see more people, and I picture Lathrup Village grabbing these tables, putting them together during lunch, seeing people they know, and this lends itself to that.
Yep, good point. Understand that concept, for
Yeah.
sure.
I also think that's going to help with the outdoor concept as well, which is a new added element of gathering, so.
Do you
So-
think, I was just gonna say, do you think it makes sense to have more glass or openness to the cafe on the outdoors?
Can we see that scene?
I know it's north facing, so there's like a double-edged sword there.
Yeah.
You've got winds to deal with, winter time when the cafe's not in use, so it's, and plus, yeah, I know there's dynamics there of, design choices, so.
Right, and there's sheer walls that we have to,
Yeah,
those things.
Yes.
There's things in there I have to give my structural engineer, they freak out. So I mean, if it was up to me, it'd be all like a Mesian glass, but anyway.
Right, understood.
Yeah.
I'm getting into the architecture a little bit too much.
No, it's fair, it's fair. It's a
Oh,
balancing.
and on this side too, with it being, that's away from the main interior dining area and more along the queue line. But the windows that are there are a direct view basically into the side of the bakery. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You're getting a little bit of a screen wall from the some of the standing and where the kiosks are inside, and then it opens up to where you get the beautiful views into the side of the bakery from the patio.
Yep, you can sneak into the restroom real quick.
I have a quick question, 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
First, this PUD is going to be applied by whom? The landlord? The development agreement will be between the city and the landlord? or between the city and Panera?
Panera's the applicant.
So it's direct with Panera? Okay. I mean, this concept looks great. The store looks nice, it looks great. I mean, the layout looks nice, everything looks really nice.
Thank you.
My question is Panera is in the city, it's been here a long time. We're already a benefit to Panera. Okay, because I'm sure if we weren't, you wouldn't be staying. So I'm sure sales are fine and you wouldn't be expanding, but the city is bigger than that square block right there. So what exactly would Panera also be providing under this PUD that provides a benefit to the community other than what's going to benefit you on that spot? I guess is my question. Because part of the PUD is that there's a benefit for both parties, not necessarily just in that square. So as Bruce said, yes, we're going to have a bike rack that looks like the one across the street, but there's plenty of parks that don't have bike racks that have anywhere. So what else is Panera proposing to the city for the city to approve a PUD that's a benefit to the city, that's not strictly just a benefit to your site, is my question. And I'm not expecting an answer today.
Right, it's something to think about, for sure.
It's a good question, and I think it kind of you know, is a little bit of a parallel path with your question, Jason, about, you know, who else we've talked to. The one group that I think it's important to bring up are all of the other existing businesses in that area. So we're the landlord for you know, starting where the original Panera was, all the way down to the Sunset West Center, and then obviously across the street. And you're right, the PUD actually was originally, when we started talking about it in 2019, it was where the existing Panera was, and we had a couple city meetings where the idea was floated that it would probably be a great site if this concept was applied to where that vacant bank is. And so I couldn't say anything at the time, but we were scrambling to try and get it under contract, because to us it was a no-brainer, and that's kind of what we had discussed. And then someone had saw that we had signed the contract, so we were kind of caught on that one, and that's kind of how it worked out. But all of the other tenants that, and we've had tenants that have, you know, I mean, they're legacy tenants. They've been businesses in Lathrup for a long time, and this would be a game changer for them. I think that having this opportunity, it's the building materials. We've worked with Susie and Jill on enhancing those. We've enhanced the landscaping, the pedestrian sidewalks, the lighting, etc. But that is going to act as a catalyst and an anchor for other businesses that are looking to come into Lathrup. And that's why I think it was so important that we tried to find ways to make this happen, because I think it's not going to just create jobs for the rapid pickup or the drive-through. It's going to spur more development in the village center, and I think that that COVID definitely took a toll, but that bank has been vacant for a while. And so what we've been concerned about is, how is this vacant building? It's never good from a community standpoint or a landlord standpoint for a building to be dark. And so for us, spurring more businesses to come in town, spurring more development in the village center and in Lathrop Village is important, and sometimes it's really great to have a catalyst. And we know that Panera has not only been the first St. Louis bred in Michigan, it was the first store to convert to a Panera, and now it's the first location to implement the next gen model that's in Baldwin. And so for that to be in Lathrop, I think it's a big deal for us. I think it could be a really big deal for future businesses, and I think it's going to be a home run for Lathrop. So it's crazy. It's been a couple of years, but I do think that is a benefit. And for us as the landlord, we've been in town for the last 40 plus years, and we're a community oriented landlord. It's important to make sure that we're doing what we feel is, of course, it's got to make some business sense, but we would never want to bring a plan into a community that we've spent 40 years building a reputation in, where we also didn't think that there were benefits to the community. So I think just intangibly there's some benefits there, you know, in addition to the, you know, couple millions of dollars of investment that we're making into this site.
Sure.
So.
The Village Center District also has the school, Danny Lathrup School. So do
Yes.
you anticipate economic benefit that might even stretch across Southfield Road? And you guys
Yes.
own that building too, so.
Yes, and without going too much into it, you know, we're long-term Lathrup believers. It's really we're a family company, and we are investing in Lathrup, you know, kind of regardless. There's a lot of other people that are, you know, thinking about investing in Lathrup, depending on if certain ordinances get enacted. Our firm didn't care about that. We just did it down the street on 11 in Southfield,
Yeah.
and we feel that now it's a little different than the Village Center, but you know, now this is going to be the next, you know, major renovation, and what we're trying to do is we can't just kind of, you know, engulf everything at once. We're doing it one after another, and this is a great next step, I think. We've already done renderings of the, you know, of other centers on the commercial side, and we've been working really hard over the last, I've been in the, you know, in this position for 7 years on what the right use is for the school. And that's gonna take a lot of community input. We just finished a market study on what uses might make the most sense there, but the first thing we did was we sent a survey out to the community. We worked with Susie and Jill on that. And one of the #1 answers that we got were food and beverage and restaurants. And so for us to be able to get, you know, a brand new, shiny next-gen Panera on a long-term lease is gonna not only spur, I think, more, you know, restaurants and other, you know, services and goods and jobs, et cetera, but it's going to continue to spur more development. So we're actively working on the school as well.
It's great.
And I would say the opportunity for Panera, it's like gives them breathing room. I mean, I get the pride, that's the feel I would get with that. I'd also like to know, though, what opportunity you foresee in their former space with that being opened up in terms of, does that,
Can I speak to that?
are there things in the wings that you can speak to as far as what might be happening with that?
Sure,
Because
absolutely.
I think Panera has been really a strong anchor
Right,
for that.
right. So I'm going to speak for Rob Crockmull, who's our director of leasing, right? So Rob now gets to say to the next food and beverage operator, there was a Panera here, and they invested and put their new concept. There's only one in America in St. Louis. They just created this concept, and now they just signed with us to expand and invest almost right next door. So now you can follow their success in. We're going to lease off of this aggressively. Each next new tenant looks for a winner. And the story of building this Panera here is that winner to lease off of it and bring in the next tenant and continue to improve the tenant mix.
Well, just to add one more point to that, is that it's also demonstrating that a long-term business like Panera, who's been here for 25 years, the landlord, the community, we're endorsing them to continue to be successful, and that's going to show other potential businesses, hey, this long-term business has been here, they're making a big investment, they've proven that they have had a successful business model in this community, we want to piggyback off that success.
Quick statement or question, and I was serious about the charging station, by the way, but question, how does this compare in size to the store on Telegraph? Is it considerably larger, about the same? I'm not expecting exact dimensions, but I'm just asking, how does that compare? Can you speak to that, or?
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Dan actually might be able to speak to that, if he's still on.
Dan Cook, are you
He's like
still on?
scrambling, typing away through.
Yeah,
that,
I'm
looking at
still
the-
here.
Going for the.
I apologize. I didn't.
drawings.
Can you please
I didn't
repeat
hear the
question?
look.
I was
Yeah,
writing
just
down charging
asking,
station on my
you have a
notes.
store on Telegraph. I was asking for the new store that you're considering here, how does that compare in size? Is it larger than the store on Telegraph? Is it about the same? I'm just trying to work that out in my head, that's all.
I don't know that right now. I'd have to get that information for you.
Yeah.
I think this is like 3,800, 4,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit smaller than the bank that's there now. We could get that information for you, but I don't have that at my fingertips right
Yeah,
now. I apologize.
just curious to that. And the other thing, and
Yeah.
somebody may have spoken to this, that a lot of times with this new development, then that now becomes a community hub. You know, so there's maybe consideration for some kind of community events and so forth at the store.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that happens all the time, all over the country in these cafes, and it's a local driven thing, you know, it's something you just can't plan. We provide the space for it to happen organically, and then it's up to the local folks who are running it, and then who are, you know, what the community wants is usually how that comes together. But I think, once again, I go back to, I think it aligns perfectly with the ethos and the mission of the organization of Panera itself, that I don't think they would have a problem with people having their, you know, soccer event, you know, end of season or whatever, soccer, you know, trophy hanging, you know, handout, or, you know, I just think that would align with the mission, so I can't see why that wouldn't happen.
Okay, thanks
Yeah,
for that.
Absolutely. And people get hungry when they go to these events, so it's a win-win, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Anything else?
This is the first review, so.
Right. Well, I think we do have to take action, right, Scott?
Right, you either have to approve or deny,
So I'm gonna make a
the
motion.
preliminary.
I'm gonna make it.
Hold on. I couldn't hear, I finished what Scott was saying. Approve or deny?
Approve or
I'm sorry.
deny the preliminary qualification of the PUD. That's the motion.
Gotcha, okay.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve preliminary qualification of the planned unit development proposed at 27777 Southfield Road.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none.
Thank
First
you.
step.
First step.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, thank you. We'll let Eric back. Thank you so much, Susie.
So we move on to the next item on the agenda, other matters for discussion. Anything?
I have no other matters.
General communications?
I've got one.
Okay.
I've been forgetting to bring this up for a while now, but a lot of other cities with their zoning applications and their variance applications, when the applicant signs the application, they're also signing that they give permission for planning and zoning officials to come onto the property to, you know, look and do their research. I was suggesting that we do the same thing.
That makes sense.
That's a really good idea.
Very good.
So then it's all in one, like you've
Right.
already got the application for site plan review and the approval to actually have city officials go on
Visit
the
the site,
property.
yeah.
Right, so I'd like to add that, you know, I don't know if that requires a motion or a vote, but I mean, you know, it'd be great if we could add that to our zoning and variance applications.
Is that just a process
Yeah,
adjustment?
I don't know, it's probably a question for Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we could add to the application information, and then obviously we would have to define the term and if there are any limitations to that. I know, ideally, we would love, from the city perspective, to have city officials be able to enter the property at any point in time, but I think we'd have to define and limit what we would be anticipating with that.
Yep.
Great,
Okay.
I support that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay. Anything else? Any other, Jill, we used to have staff or communication, and now it's general communications?
I think that covers
anything
all
from-
the different
Did you take
departments.
any sort of action on that item?
Yes, they approved it.
Excellent.
Did you miss that? Oh, sorry.
That's easy.
Yeah. Yes, we approved that first
Good to
step.
go.
Yes.
Was there a finding of preliminary determination of qualifications being met?
That's what, yeah, the motion was to approve preliminary qualification of the plan unit
Perfect.
development for that
That
address.
was really fast. I wasn't gone that long.
Well, you know.
Thank you.
You missed it, and I'm blaming you.
Before we end, was there a resolution to the screen wall for the gas station
No.
from the last,
Not-
from the last?
No,
year?
I've been, we have been in communication. We're working on it. Actually, I think it was maybe even the day or two after the meeting, the city engineer was like, well, what about, MDOT requires like a breakaway, sort of building material. It looks like stacked papers, or it looks like bricks, but it's really kind of like, for lack of a better term, styrofoamy. So it's not. It's better, but it's. I mean,
It will
it's
take
a
some
poly
impact
something. It's a
if it's
poly
going
something,
in-
I was
right?
gonna say, I'm surprised that they wouldn't consider,
Breakaway.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's-
stacked pavers is not breakaway.
Well, no, I mean, it was just another alternative that he had suggested. So we're still
only
working
asking-
on it, but
Yeah, I would want, I wouldn't want it to go to a consideration for another material and then being considered,
no,
administratively, if it does.
No, it's not. It was just another suggestion from the engineer saying, hey, we know that this is a material that MDOT has approved. So since one of the considerations is that it's off of Southfield Road, to have something similar in the breakawayness of it. So we're still working with the property owner. I know we've been playing phone tag and we just haven't been able to connect over the last couple
I
of
only
weeks. So-
asked because I noticed that they were prepping to pour the cement. So obviously,
Right.
they were gonna have to put a wall, they had to pour footings.
Right.
Yeah, and the styrofoamy, to use the technical term.
Yeah, that was the technical term.
Yeah.
That's my civil engineering experience
Yeah,
right
they
there.
can't put
To
the
to
footing
use the
over where
technical
the
term,
tank
that
is.
doesn't require a footing?
No.
No,
I was gonna
it
say
wouldn't. But I mean, if that was a
Tank's
material
already
that he
in
ultimately
underground
ends up
connected to the
considering, I mean, it
poles.
would obviously come back to planning commission. I mean, he wants
So-
to, you wanted him to
Well,
come
the
back
problem
anyways
is
with,
that
Familiar
had
with styrofoamy materials being
It had
used
already
for
been
fill
done.
below
By the
grade,
time we got to that,
but not
It was the
necessarily
state
as
said
a
they couldn't
decorative
put
or a,
the
which
footings.
this element
We did
obviously
that.
is, as well as
State said
providing
they
screening
couldn't
as well as.
right. So we'll hopefully have a resolution for the next meeting. So.
Okay, this is a question.
Yep.
All right. Well, if there's no other, Scott, anything from you? Communications?
Nothing for me tonight.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Don't have to vote on it.